systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So over the weekend, Saturday night, a man known by Secret Service who claimed he was Jesus Christ pulled out a revolver and opened fire outside of the White House near a Secret Service checkpoint. He allegedly got off 3 shots before he was killed by Secret Service, who appropriately responded to his opening fire. One bystander was injured in the gunfire. This is somebody, as I said, who is known to Secret Service. He had previously been involuntarily committed on June 26th of last year for obstructing vehicular traffic, and was arrested again on July 10th, that is, for unlawful entry. Tried to bum rush security in front of the White House. Known quantity. Somebody described as having a history of mental health issues. Yes, right. Claiming to be Jesus Christ, sort of indicative of that. But one wonders if this was another instance where Secret Service was not as proactive as they could or should have been. The fact that he got shots off, the fact that it was a known quantity. And maybe this is being too tough on Secret Service in this instance. But because there is this history of issues, particularly of recent memory, one has to look at incidents like this with a jaundiced eye, I think. Mike Olson is a retired Secret Service agent. He's also the co-founder and owner of 360 Security Services, 360security.services. Mike, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dan. Good morning.
So what about this incident? Number one, as I said, known quantity, and he was apparently, before he pulled out a revolver and opened fire, he was pacing up and down the sidewalk in a strange manner. So he didn't just sort of pop out of nowhere and immediately open fire. He was meandering about and then opened fire. And you know, this isn't necessarily Secret Service's responsibility, but Secret Service working with law enforcement to ensure somebody who has repeatedly tried to breach security around the White House is removed from the public on a more permanent basis.
Well, this is an example where the criminal justice system, in my opinion, fails the protection of not only the president, vice president, but citizens that live, operate, transit in the area of protected properties such as the White House complex. Ironically, I don't think we shared this last time, but I was involved in an incident many years ago, actually at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, involving an individual that had tried to breach security, ended up getting into a fight with him, had to go to trial there in Washington, D.C., appear before a jury. And the jury does what a lot of juries do, is they decided that the person wasn't guilty of violating any crimes. That was what juries have the right to do, is make that type of decision. And unfortunately, along that pathway of our criminal justice system, prosecution entities also have the ability to decide whether or not they're going to bring forward a case or hold somebody accountable to the laws of the land. In this case, somebody who's apparently repeatedly come to the attention of the Secret Service and has attempted to engage in other inappropriate conduct or illegal conduct in the past isn't held accountable, yet shows very clear signs and indicators, signals of being somebody who's on some sort of pathway to violence. And so law enforcement, unfortunately, is left to, again, wait until the last minute to react to a new situation rather than having had the opportunity to have this person, like you said, maybe proactively locked up or kept off the streets or gotten the help they maybe need if they're suffering from some severe mental illness.
But even if the Secret Service did everything right in this instance, is it, in your view, incumbent upon the director, Sean Curran, to offer some comment on this and call out local authorities or federal law enforcement, as is, the Department of Justice, as is warranted, to say, these are the kind of people that we're working with, locals as well as federales, to make sure they're removed from society, so we have somebody that's presents as a consistent threat to the president, the White House, personnel, and that person needs to be removed. And we communicated about this person. We didn't communicate. What's the rest of the story? Part of the problem, it seems to me, going back to Butler, is of late we're not getting the full story from Secret Service, and it creates doubt.
Well, it's a great question, Dan, and I think we're in obviously some extremely concerning period of time here. Just from my 20 plus years in the Secret Service, where these types of things happen once in a blue moon. We had threats every day, all day long. We dealt with these things. We worked to identify the threats, assess them, and then manage them. But you didn't have a society right now that is completely breaking down, where people think violence is the answer, mentally ill or not. And I think society as a whole needs to be severely educated as to the severity of the threats that exist there right now, especially against this current administration. And that causes, to your point, to your question, that I think there does need to be some more aggressive education for the public, for our political leaders to understand. They're in some cases, they're being threatened by the same individuals that threatened the president. That was par for the course. A lot of times we saw the same people that threatened the governor or a senator were the same people that were threatening the president. So they have a vested interest in opening this dialogue up. But the problem is, and again, this is just, I don't want to get into a debate, not with you, but with the community as a whole. But we always want to focus on it's the gun that does the killing, and it's not. It's individuals that do killings or target people. So if we don't want to address root causes, then we constantly are focusing on the wrong thing, thinking it's going to solve the problem, and we're not solving any problems because we're not addressing root causes. But back to your original question, absolutely, I think there needs to be a more aggressive educational campaign that exists out there for behavioral threat assessment management programs, and people understanding what kind of individuals are out there right now, not only making these threats, but working to carry out these threats or attacks in this current political environment we're in.
The Secret Service training, vetting and training issues. Jason Chaffetz, former rep who was chairman of the House Oversight Committee and spent years looking at Secret Service, said after the shooting at the White House Correspondents Association dinner that there is a vetting and training problem. He said most rank and file agents, excluding counter snipers and members of the counter assault team, only receive an average of 30 minutes of training per year. And he also took issue with Sean Curran's statements after the White House Correspondents Association dinner shooting that the dinner had been set up perfectly, asking the question, well, what if there were 12 guys with guns that decided to rush that checkpoint instead of one? How would that have gone? To his point that, that person should have not, even though he wasn't, quote unquote close, he shouldn't have been able to get that close. So address that, because there's been a lot of high profile, embarrassing incidents involving Secret Service agents, from the woman who was involved in, who missed allegedly is the woman who missed the elevated position at Butler and keeps getting disciplined but stays on the job, to this guy just a couple of months ago, I mean, who was arrested for masturbating in public in a hotel in Miami. It's just like, and the guy who was he with Jill Biden? I'm going from memory here. Who accidentally shot himself with his own gun. I mean, just like these incidents do not inspire confidence.
It's embarrassing being a former member of the Secret Service to see some of these incidents happen, and it's obviously goes up without saying it's unacceptable. I'm a firm advocate of you can't do enough training. You can't, and that's for any organization. I mean, even those listening out there that have companies and things like that. Think about if some crisis happens in your facility. It has nothing to do with the President of the United States, but has to do with some sort of workplace violence or things. Are you prepared? There is never a perfect security plan out there ever. Bad people constantly work to overcome and defeat and figure out how to defeat security measures. And so you have to constantly learn and you have to constantly train. So I think the point as far as training is you can't fund it enough. And so if leaders of organizations or politicians who oversee these governmental entities, organizations, whether it's police departments or whatever, aren't screaming and yelling for lots and lots of training, then they're doing a disservice in general. As far as the competency, the quality, there's no question. I mean, it's not just in the Secret Service. It's happened across government as a whole. It's happened in other entities. There is this unwillingness to hold people accountable and to have transparency and to hold ourselves to some level of standards that need to exist. And when people cross those lines in any profession, they should be held accountable and there should be repercussions. But there seems to be this apathy across society, and it has bled over, as I transitioned out of the government over 10 years ago, it bled severely into the government where it was, hey, we're just bringing people on. We have to give more people. And with that, you start to lower standards. You start to lower governance and accountability. And then the transparency becomes a problem because now you want to try to, keep that from being visible. Unfortunately, with these recent incidents, it's hard to do that.
So, I mean, do you get the sense? I mean, even from talking to other agents, that there is this lingering vetting problem. I mean, you've addressed the training issue, but the vetting problem too. I mean, because this, obviously people know this is deathly serious. But there's a story out over the weekend that Ivanka Trump was targeted for assassination by an Iranian terrorist to avenge President Trump's killing of Soleimani, who was his mentor. This guy was arrested in Turkey recently, and the story comes out that he had Ivanka Trump on his hit list. And so, it's not just Trump and Vance. It's the extended family. You saw AOC speaking in Montgomery, Alabama last week, and she's behind bulletproof glass. I mean, it seems like the cultural problem you described is certainly part of it. But I just wonder if we could be getting a lot better from Secret Service, and maybe Sean Curran should be addressing that, because when the last time we had Secret Service address something like after Butler, it left a lot of people unsatisfied, myself included.
Well, I think you're right. I think, again, the problem here is that the Secret Service is one of many, federal government agencies out there that have to abide by certain federal hiring standards and things like that. And yes, they have some additional things that they can put in terms of, physical standards or things that are required in order to obtain a top secret clearance. But there needs to be communication about it. And I think these leaders do have to be able to get out there and speak to the public to generate public awareness for people to get behind them in order to make the necessary change or go back to where, better standards can be put in place. And one of the frightening things right now, I don't think I'm saying anything secret here, is law enforcement as a whole, Secret Service included, is suffering greatly from a hiring deficit. They are short.
Like a recruiting problem.
Oh, yes. And that has happened in the post-George Floyd era with this, whoever it's coming from, whoever's organizing it, the anti-police, create chaos in the streets of the U.S. Well, you literally have people. I've talked to many younger generation that don't want to go into law enforcement now because they're afraid of getting prosecuted if they make a mistake. They don't want to put up with that. They don't. You have a younger generation that's into social media. They don't want to be doxxed and gone after. So that's a big problem. And so when you need to put numbers on the job, what is your tendency to maybe cut a corner here, cut a corner there to get bodies on the job in order to do the work? And that's a significant problem, as we can all agree to.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a good example of that over the weekend at that attempted blockade of the ICE detention facility in New Jersey, and even when politicians like the Senator Andy Kim were out there, it was chaos because these people are unhinged. So no, I get it's not an attractive job, so that's part of it. I mean, but these are the things that need to be addressed honestly and put it out there, because that's one way to turn the tide, is to say, get people to understand we got a recruitment problem, getting good people and getting them trained up. And, these agents of chaos out there, like we saw in New Jersey, aren't helping the matter. So maybe some people should tell them to knock it off. Mike Olson, retired Secret Service agent, co-founder of 360 Security Services, 360security.services. Mike, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dan. Have a great day.
You too. And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000,